We're indeed delighted to have you join us today, the 8th of September, the first Sunday of this month. Hello and welcome to Weekend Focus, where we look at the news that made headlines over the past 7 days. I am Mukitale together with our sign language interpreter, Raymond Butera. Now, this week had so many captivating stories, but as the saying goes, that the best things come last. The biggest story perhaps came at the end of the week. We finally got to hear the verdict on the NRM rebels case. The Constitutional Court issued a temporary injunction blocking the 4 expelled NRM MPs from accessing Parliament and participating in any parliamentary proceedings pending disposal of the main suit. Now, 4 justices of the 5 that sat on the bench also directed Speaker of Parliament Rebecca Kadaga not to provide seats to the expelled MPs in Parliament. Now, out of the 4, only one justice, Remi Kasule, remained opposed to the verdict. But as our reporter sought to find out, the injunction raises a question as to whether the MPs can access Parliament as ordinary citizens, since it's a constitutional right that they have. Trouble for the 4 expelled NRM MPs seems to have deepened after the Constitutional Court issued a temporary injunction blocking them from accessing Parliament and participating in any parliamentary proceedings pending disposal of their main suit. The interim, which directs Speaker Rebecca Kadaga not to give the MPs seats, comes 3 days to the hearing of the MPs' appeal in the Supreme Court, which the MPs' lawyers say they will have to make amendment to stay execution of the injunction. Justices led by Stephen Kavuma, Richard Butera, Faith Monda and Augustine Nshimye say they are satisfied that the NRM made a case to warrant the issuance of a temporary injunction.
This court doth order that a mandatory injunction be and is hereby granted, directing the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament through the first respondent to temporarily restrain the second, third, fourth and fifth respondents from entering the August House of Parliament, to deny them seats therein and participation in any parliamentary activities until the final judgment in the consolidated constitutional petitions is pronounced.
The fate of the 4 MPs, Wilfred Nwagaba of Ndora East, Mohamed Nsireko Kampala Central, Barnabas Tinkasimi representing Buyaga, and Theodore Sechkubo of Lemiaga County, now lies in the hands of the Supreme Court that will sit on Monday next week to hear the MPs' appeal. However, Justice Remi Kasule dissociated himself from the ruling of the 4 judges, saying the approach taken by the court is prejudgmental, prejudicial, and against the duty imposed on them to act impartially. Kasule said granting the injunction when all the necessary evidence in the main case are before court would mean predetermining the main petition. The MP's lawyers, Meda Disegona and Professor Kanyehamba, wondered how court could circumvent to make a law which Parliament had earlier denounced.
No mention of applications number 14 or 16 was mentioned. So we were very surprised this morning.
Now the death of rule of law in this country. So I should say, in a nutshell, rest in peace, rule of law in this country.
2 party members, Saleh Kamba and Maria Magasha, petitioned the Constitutional Court challenging Kadaga's decision to retain them in Parliament, which NRM Chairman President Yoweri Museveni and Press Secretary General Mambabazi subsequently swore affidavit. Now, another saying goes that when the going gets tough, the tough keep going. And perhaps this can better explain the resilience of the 4 rebel MPs. The rebel MPs would later address the media at Parliament, vowing to proceed to the Supreme Court to challenge the ruling of the Constitutional Court that bars them from stepping in Parliament until court makes their final ruling on their fate. Now, as Timothy Sebasti reports, the rebel MPs describe the Constitutional Court ruling as politically motivated.
In March this year, the ruling National Resistance Movement suspended 4 of its MPs from the party on ground that the MPs Theodore Sechkubo, Wilfred Nwagaba, Barnabas Tinkasimi and Mohamed Nsireko had decided to go against the rules that govern the party. The suspension was followed by an appeal from the party Secretary General Mambabazi to the office of the Speaker of Parliament asking her to declare the seats of the 4 vacant, an appeal that the Speaker turned down. The Speaker's ruling was later followed by a petition to the Constitutional Court by Kibuku MP Saleh Kamba, who wanted to seek for a legal interpretation on the Speaker's ruling to save the 4 MPs in the multi-party dispensation. But the 4 suspended MPs say the battle is not over.
We had thought Butera would be rehabilitated. He has collapsed yet again. Even the opportunity for Butera to rehabilitate himself, it has failed, unfortunately. Kavuma is the perennial one. What can we say about him? He's known. He has no face to save. We urge everyone to be strong. In the fight against dictatorship, there is no cowardly.
Whereas now it's clear that the 4 MPs now consider challenging the Constitutional Court ruling to stay them out of Parliament. Out of 5 judges, only Justice Remi Kasule gave a contrary view.
We want to go to a court, to another court, which we think is sober and is not drunk with NRM.
The NRM legal team argued that the 4 were abusing the parliamentary immunity, according to them, to interfere with the judicial process by making personal attacks on the panel of judges. But Kampala Central MP Muhammad Nsariku told the media at Parliament that the ruling was political motivated.
Who are they fearing? It's known. In whose favor are they acting? In favor of that one who saw their affidavit. Fellow countrymen, we cannot lament about the injustice that is going on in our country. Having knowledge of the entire pyramid from bottom to top, there is injustice.
They could have received direction from the head of state, President Museveni. They should step aside, and they refused, simply because in their wigs they had pocketed some dollars.
What is now left to see is whether the Supreme Court will turn down the ruling of the Constitutional Court. Timothy Bassi, the Star Vision, Parliament.
Well, that war seems so far from ending, and perhaps we will have to see whether Speaker of Parliament throws them out of the House next week. But still in politics, government came out and poured scorn on the Uganda Law Society over the suspension of Attorney General Peter Nyombi, saying the Attorney General is only accountable to the President of the country. Information and National Guidance Minister Rosemary Namayanja says the Uganda Law Society has no powers over the Attorney General's office since his membership is only statutory.
Late last month, the Uganda Law Society resolved to suspend the Attorney General Peter Nyombi, basing on what they described as misguiding the President. The law body faulted Attorney General Peter Nyombi on several grounds, including the appointment of General Aronda Nyakairima as serving arm officer to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and the reappointment of Justice Benjamin Oroch as Chief Justice despite clocking the retirement age. This in addition to poor handling of constitutional petition number 47 of 2011, Severino Tinobushinje versus the Attorney General, and giving unsolicited legal opinion to the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, on rebel MPs. All those opinions to the Law Society exhibited irresponsible behavior and caused embarrassment. But according to the Information Minister, Rosemary Namayanja, the Law Council has no authority to suspend Attorney General, quoting Section 4, Clause 1 of the Law Society, which says that the Attorney General and Solicitor General are ex-officio members of the Law Society and their membership is statutory.
The membership of the Attorney General in the Law Society is statutory. It's by an Act of Parliament, and therefore the meeting of the Law Society that sat on the 29th of August 2013 had no authority whatsoever to suspend the Attorney General. Accordingly, the resolution of the meeting to suspend the Attorney General is a nullity and with no legal consequences.
Section 2 of the Uganda Law Society Act 276 defines the membership of the society, but in their petition, it does not disclose under which law the petitioners sought to suspend the Attorney General. Government is now basing its argument on Article 117 of the Constitution, which states that ministers shall individually be accountable to the President for the administration of their ministries and be collectively responsible for any decision made by Cabinet.
The Attorney General is individually accountable to the President for the administration of his ministry and collectively responsible for any decisions made by Cabinet.
Namayanja says the Uganda Law Society is merely speculating with the intention to attack the Attorney General, just like in 2007 when the Uganda Law Society suspended Nyombi's predecessor, Kiduma Kubuya, on similar grounds.
Now, this week also, the former Vice President, Professor Gilbert Baliba Sekabo Kenya, officially opened a can of worms with the man he once thought is the only one with a vision to lead Uganda, incumbent Yoweri Museveni, calling him a despot who has already rigged the 2016 elections. Bukenya, in a brief interview with the media at his parliament office, told journalists how he had dropped his candidature in the 2016 elections, saying unless the current regime gives way to democratic governance, it would be senseless to take part in the polls. This will perhaps be taken as a direct official fallout of the former Vice President and current Busiro North legislator, Professor Gilbert Bukenya, with the man he once said was the only one with a vision to lead the country in the names of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But now things have changed and the reverse appears to be the truth.
There are now already signs that Uganda cannot have a free and fair election come 2016. Right now, all of the headmasters of secondary schools in Buganda are sitting in Ndeje University undergoing what they call patriotism. I support patriotism, but the biggest statement that has made those teachers be very worried is to tell them that either you are the movement or not.
Bukenya, who following his drop from cabinet has been on a rocky affair with the powers that be, seeing him at one time declare intentions to stand against Museveni in the party presidential primaries, gathered a group of parliament reporters inside his office at Parliament and told them of his disillusionment with the status quo.
If you disrupt Kizza Besigye's meeting in Masaka and you don't disrupt your own meeting, that's my big problem. But if there are people who are favored and there are people who are not favored and you are both in the party, that's a danger, bad recipe for the party. And the way NRM is shifting, it is shifting towards, these are good people, these are not good people.
Bukenya added his voice to that of Kizza Besigye, the former FDC president, saying incumbent Yoweri Museveni had already rigged 2016 polls, citing the recently passed Public Order Management Bill, which he says is a stumbling block to a free and fair election. He believes the country should take serious drastic measures before 2016 to change the status quo.
But just going for election 2016, the way things are, is a wastage of time. I think the country must establish an interim system outside the governing system. That interim system is the one perhaps which manages the elections.
As of now, we don't believe there is a candidate because the Electoral Commission has not even announced. It still has some 2 or more years for one to be regarded as a candidate.
Bukenya says the majority of the things currently happening in the country, like the passing of the Public Order Management Bill, the Odoki and Ronda scandals, are all signs that the 2016 elections will be a sham. He adds that with the Prime Minister John Patrick Mbabazi also refusing to step down from the NRM Secretary General post, the opposition can best be well assured of unleveled playground.
There must be a drastic constitutional review about powers and differentiation between the executive, parliament, and especially the judiciary.
Whether there is a level ground or not, what I know is that we are using, I think, maybe different lenses. Right now, as a party, as NRM, but most importantly as government that was mandated to lead this country for the 5 years, our focus is on service delivery.
Information Minister Rosemary Namayanja confirmed WBS TV that indeed government is currently conducting nationwide patriotism lessons to over 600 government head teachers and student leaders, but refuted reports that the latter are being indoctrinated. Now, in a bid to prove the validity of Professor Bukenya's statements in line with the teachers and head teachers being forced to join the NRM, we hit the road to Ndeje SS to see it for ourselves, and yes indeed, the old professor was true to some extent. We found over 600 head teachers and student leaders completing a 10-day patriotism lesson at Ndeje Secondary School in Luweero, a thing that critics think is or was an act of indoctrination. Now, as Senawa Koza reports, the training came at a time when teachers countrywide are set to go on strike over their pay rise.
Loving and protecting the country rather than promoting corruption are some of the key messages that characterizes patriotic trainings in Uganda. And so was expected at the passing out of over 200 head teachers and student leaders in Central Region, though surprisingly, these head teachers mainly acquired warring techniques.
I support patriotism, but the biggest statement that has made those teachers be very worried is to tell them that either you are the movement or not.
Described by critics as a waste of resources, the training mainly focused on how to operate an AK-47 rifle without due consideration that they deal with students in classes, not rebels or criminals. The training, however, raises worries as to what will happen when teachers demand for a salary increment with due respect to the acquired techniques.
We fired. The shots, yeah, we fired. None of us hit the target.
But for the head teachers who have gone through this training and intend to go on strike over a pay rise, we will have to think twice or else they will face it rough.
And if you're patriotic, will you go on and say, I'm not teaching, I'm not there? Stop those words, they are not forceful, but the moment you say that, it's like a security officer saying, I'm tired of this.
The training is to be rolled out to different parts of the country, and those who fail to make it are likely to be affected.
Anabataze walibanga afunye ebizibu fwe tetujja kumuyamba kembadde ntegeeza bwana ajja nti ateze bango byeri musomero eri bizibuzibu ne tugamba ngati wasoma ebyokukola management.
The patriotic training is President Yoweri Museveni's initiative aimed at changing the mindset of Ugandans whom he believes do not have the country at heart. Stella Nabakoza, WBS TV, Ndeje.
Now, following this, the Uganda National Teachers Union, UNATU, addressed the media in Kampala, insisting that the teachers under the umbrella organization will not return to class next term until the 20% increase is given to them. This came just 9 days to the end of their 90-day ultimatum that they gave government to have the 20% increase or they lay down the tools. As Paul Matovo found out, the teachers seem determined, but the situation remains hopeless as all meetings they have attended so far are achieving no results.
The teachers maintain that from the budget analysis and documents available, there are still enough funds to enable government meet their obligation of paying teachers 20% salary enhancement. With just 9 days to the expiry of the 90-day ultimatum issued by the teachers to lay down their tools, they are now asking government to use oil exploration fund to meet their demand.
Through the teacher union, we need to proactively influence policy processes in the oil and gas industry so that some of the benefits from this sector can contribute to addressing the challenges that I've mentioned above that are in the Ministry of Education and the impact on us.
Several meetings have been held over the teachers' salary increment and between the President and UNATU, as well as a petition to Parliament, but no tangible results have been attained. The association chairperson, Margaret Rabashaija, says teachers shall not step in class to teach if government fails to respond to their call. According to her, even the meeting they held with the President also failed to yield fruits, as he only promised to increase their salaries with the oil funds, which the teachers say is far-fetched.
We have inadequate teacher housing facilities, the hungry children coming to school because of the lack of a midday meal, inadequate infrastructure, adequate teacher management and support, and motivation, among others.
Apart from schools in the urban setup, those from rural areas have a bad experience since even teachers posted there by the Ministry of Education and Sports refuse because of lack of essentials. But advocates in the circles of education say government ought to trap resources in order to address teachers' salaries.
Government should increase the salary of teachers is to make sure that our children are getting a quality education.
The teachers' 90-day ultimatum to lay down their tools has only less than 9 days to expire, as schools are scheduled to open on 16th of this month.
Now, this week we also got a sigh of relief over the Migingo Island squabbles as Kenya and Uganda signed an agreement aimed at ending the Migingo Island's security stalemate. In the deal, there will be a joint management of the island to avert any security crisis as the residents wait for results from the shillings 240 million demarcation exercise conducted in 2009. The landmark success was reached in a meeting held in Migori County's Mukitale town on Sunday, in which Natike Sub-County Commissioner Moses Ivotu and his Ugandan counterpart Namayengo John Wafula signed a deal in the presence of civil servants from relevant ministries, security officers and political leaders from the two countries. According to Uganda's Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador James Mugume, the decision was influenced by the need to ensure that fishermen operating on the island are able to go on with their businesses without any interruption as they wait for the final decision on the fate of the island.
We are going to continue to finalize the arrangement. The solution was already there, so we needed to meet and finalize. We have had a report of the technical team for the ministers to look at.
Under the new arrangement, which awaits document formalization, will see the creation of a new Migingo Beach Management Unit with both Kenyans and Ugandans in representation. Ambassador Mugume told WBS TV on phone that this was reached after thorough consultations by delegations from both countries. The unit, expected to be in place soon, will settle fishing disputes on the island and is to also help in tracking down cases of poaching and tax evasion.
It's not a magic bullet that you said. We have to have a report, and based on the report, the ministers then will decide. But we are still waiting for the technical team to finalize their report. We have always worked together.
Part of the newly formed unit's mandate will be to sensitize locals on the legal tariffs to be paid by fishermen crossing over to fish in Uganda or Kenyan waters. The meeting was a follow-up to last month's meeting on the island by the Kenyan police boss David Kismayo and his Ugandan counterpart Kale Kaihura, which resolved to ensure that there was peace. For years, the island has created friction between Ugandan and Kenyan fishermen, with both parties claiming that it belongs to their territories. If formalized, the new success would see the two parties agreeing on how to jointly share the island as a no man's land. However, much more bigger news from the region was far from ending as regional leaders sitting in Kampala ordered the M23 rebel group to stop threatening the DR Congo government. Uganda's Foreign Affairs Minister Sam Kahamba Kutesa, who chairs the Council of Ministers from the region, said all heads of states have agreed that peace talks resume immediately.
After a week of battles in the war-ravaged Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo that holds in the Rwandan territory bordering Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo shelled with long-range rocket launcher bombs. This comes amidst accusations from the UN Intervention Brigade that the M23 is behind the shelling of Rwanda. To try and break the deadlock, 5 heads of states from the Great Lakes region have convened in Kampala with their foreign and defense ministers to discuss the security situation in Eastern DRC. But as the summit started with the open session of the Council of Ministers for Foreign Affairs from member states, Chairperson Sam Kutesa blamed Kenya for slowing down the negotiation process to end the fighting in Eastern DRC. From the start, Uganda stated that it intends for the talks to conclude and for fighting to end in Eastern DRC.
Uganda still holds the view That conclusion of these talks would stop the fighting in the short term and will make a positive contribution towards the national consultations in that country.
Despite Uganda's commitment to resolve the DR Congo question, the just concluded shelling of Rwanda territories by unknown armed groups is a concern for the region, with the blame game about the attacks going on.
Strongly condemn the recent bombings from the DRC territory that have resulted in deaths of civilians in the territory of Rwanda, and direct the EJVM to complete the verification process and provide a report to the chairperson of the Committee of Ministers of Defense as soon as possible.
Most probably it comes from FRDC, the government side, but we think most probably FDLR through FRDC.
However, the chair of the Council of Foreign Affairs Minister, Sam Kutesa, told the Council of Ministers that he was hopeful that the largest UN force in the history of the UN is in the DRC, and they hope it will resolve the crisis in Eastern Congo this time round. In spite of what had played out during the course of the day, the Council of Defense Ministers and Foreign Affairs Ministers who had pointed fingers to Kenya to have slowed down the peace talks between the M23 rebels and the DRC government. What has just come out from the presidential closed meeting is that the M23 rebels have been directed to stop fighting with immediate effect.
M23 should put an end to all military activities and stop war and threats of overthrowing the lawful government of the DRC. 5. Commit to continue exerting pressure together with our partners, in particular the Intervention Brigade, on the M23 and other negative forces.
Salute the Congolese army. Recently, they launched an offensive against Cobra in that area, the area near Bunia. I encourage them to continue.
Also, the other top on agenda resolution that has been made here in the presidential summit is that they have directed that the peace talks start within a period of 3 days and end within a space of 14 days.
That the Kampala dialogue resumes within 3 days after this extraordinary summit and conclude within a maximum period of 14 days, during which period maximum restraint must be exercised on the ground to allow for talks to conclude.
Now, also the Ministry of Internal Affairs apprehended 17 Indians for allegedly obtaining work in Uganda without work permits. The Indians who were arrested in the eastern part of the country were found operating in Kaliro and Mayuge sugar factories. The arrests were made by the Inspection and Legal Services Department of the Immigration and will soon be rolled out to different parts of the country.
These are the Indians that were cracked down in an operation carried out by the Inspection and Legal Services Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. These are said to have come to Uganda as tourists but ended up acquiring jobs in Karilo and Mayuge sugar factories. According to the Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Ministry, Benjamin Kagireme, these are going to be arraigned in court on Monday to answer illegal immigration charges.
Some of them have not yet produced their passports. When we look at their passports and establish their immigration status in the country, then we'll take the appropriate decisions, which may include arraigning them in court or taking administrative decisions of deportation and fining.
Katana says illegal immigrants are mostly found in Hoima because of the oil potential in the region, but adds that this operation will soon be rolled out to other parts of the country as these pose a security threat to the country in the face of increasing terror threats.
It denies the country an opportunity to earn taxes from them, because when they are getting permits, they pay to the country. So it means that by working without permits, they are denying the country the opportunity to earn non-tax revenue from them. And also, the people who are not registered and not known to us, they pose a security threat to the country.
The ministry is in the process of carrying out more inspection routines to crack down on all those who are illegally staying in the country. Uganda deports a total of 700 illegal immigrants annually, according to records from the ministry. Siblime Andrew, WBS TV, Kampala.
And with that story, we now take a short break and return with more stories that made headlines during the week.